Hello and welcome to Harvest. Glad you could join us on this December day, and trust wherever you are, you're having a good day today. I woke up to a little bit of snow on the ground, and we've got, I guess, Valerie, your parents, to thank for that.
That's right. That's it. I think they prayed for the snow. They've been here visiting with me, and I think they were going to have to go back to Florida, of all places, without having some snow. So I think they brought the snow.
They got a little taste of a white Christmas today.
And they're used to it. I mean, we lived in Ohio when I was younger, much younger. I kind of spent 8 years growing up in Ohio, but it's been a long time. They've been in Florida for a long time now. So
have they been out making snow angels or videoing it for your family members?
No, my father has been out. My father was out yesterday making a video and taking pictures for my sister-in-law, Brandy, who has never seen snow before. So he sent it to her, and she says, wow.
Not even in a picture?
Well, I mean, she's never experienced it live.
Well, speaking of live, joining us now live from Israel is Pete Sumrall, the president and CEO of LaCie Broadcasting. And Pete, good to see you today. What's going on there in Israel? We know we were just there for a tour, but you had to kind of get back there for some METV affairs.
I came back for a little bit of METV business, but I fly home tonight, and I'll be back in South Bend tomorrow. And
we see there in the monitor behind you, that's Middle East Television right there in the hotel room. Tell us a little bit, it's been a little over 10 years since Middle East Television has come into the family of LaCie Broadcasting. Just recap briefly the mission, the impact, the ministry component of outreach that METV provides.
You know, Middle East Television was started, I think, around 30 years ago, actually, by a guy by the name of George Otis, and it was up in Marjayoun, Lebanon, just across the border from Israel, from Metula, Israel. And CBN took it over, and they ran it for a number of years, and then we had an opportunity back in 2001 to be able to acquire it and become the operators of Middle East Television, and we jumped at the moment that we had the opportunity, and it's really been a great blessing, and we know we're doing a great job here. I've talked to several people while I've been here just in the last couple of days about Middle East TV and the impact that we're having in the nation, and we believe we are changing lives and making a difference.
Well, Pete, you know, when I was there, I think we were at the Citadel, David Citadel, there in the old city, standing on the rooftop there, and we could see the satellite dishes just covering Jerusalem there. And we were talking about what you hope to accomplish to further extend the reach of Middle East Television. Talk to us about that.
You know, actually, all those little satellite dishes in the old city are from the direct-to-home satellite company called Yes. And that's one of the meetings I get today before boarding the airplane to fly home. And Yes is the, like I said, direct-to-home satellite provider, somewhat like we have DirecTV or Dish in the United States. In the old city, because they're so old and so complicated, there is no cable television like we have in the States with Comcast, Time Warner, Cox, or one of those other cable providers. And so if you want to have television at all in the old city, you have to have a satellite dish, and you've got to be able to get it from this company called Yes. And, you know, it really is a great thing that we're on both Hot, which is the cable company, and Yes, which is the satellite company. And we reach into about 98% of all the homes in Israel. And our combination of family programming and sports and Christian programming, our Arabic subtitling, we have Russian language Christian programming, Arabic programming, Farsi language Christian programming. So we've got a wide variety of programming that, frankly, nobody else has. And I believe we're reaching a very broad community. And actually, the monitor behind me is Middle East Television. And this afternoon, we're showing the Left Behind movie. So it's kind of fun to be able to watch and see what all we're doing. I had a great time watching NFL football on Sunday and also yesterday, and then also watching the 700 Club, the Harvest program. It was pretty cool this morning, waking up and watching Dr. Sumrall teaching series on angels here in Israel. And so it's been really good to be able to reconnect with Israel and reconnect with what Middle East Television is doing.
Pete, we mentioned quite often about the reach of Middle East Television into Israel, 98% of the homes, as you just mentioned, and that's a central part of the mission of METV, but it does extend to the Arabic world as well, and many of the programs are actually dubbed over, translated into Arabic by our offices there in Jordan. What kind of response have we been getting, and how do you see that component of the ministry being effective as well?
You know, Stefan, I think it's very effective. Unfortunately, a lot of times people are not in a position where they can respond and tell us what they think because of either social values or family conflicts, et cetera. But we know that we get response from Iraq and Afghanistan and Iran. Imagine that. People in Tehran, Iran are watching Middle East television. We know we're getting response to people who are watching in Qatar or United Arab Emirates and Kuwait and you know, all through the Middle East. We're reaching people in a way that, frankly, nobody else can do. And we have an office in Amman, Jordan. We have several employees there. They take our Christian programming and they put the subtitling on the bottom of it, just like on the Luster Summerall teaching series I mentioned earlier. And so, you know, it really is pretty cool how Middle East television is able to reach beyond the nation of Israel, reach into the entire Middle East, and cover an incredible broad area of people in an amazing way.
Well, Pete, would you talk about the significance of our partners there on the ground or just around the world and how they help us to fund the ministry of Middle East television and why it's so important to continue?
Well, Valerie, if it wasn't for our partners, we couldn't do this at all. And Middle East television does not pay for itself. It's a mission project, as Drew likes to say. It's one of those unfunded mission projects that we do. You know, we have to raise the money from our partners to be able to cover our costs, and it does cost around close to $3 million a year to operate Middle East television. And so we've got to cover the expense with donations, and we really do need our partners to help us, because without our partners, we couldn't do this. But it's really great that our partners all over the United States, literally all over the world, are helping us to reach an incredible area. You know, hardly a day goes by that Israel, the Middle East, is not in the news. And just we have a voice. We have a voice, a very strong voice that's here, preaching the gospel, telling the truth, and I believe leading people to a better life.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Pete. Pete Summerall, President and CEO of LaCie Broadcasting. Safe travels back home. And I want to encourage friends watching right now to pray for Middle East television, pray for God's favor as that signal continues to reach souls and homes and hearts in the Middle East. Pray for expansion opportunities to come our way as well. And if you've not been a part of Middle East television, if you're not yet a partner with LaCie Broadcasting, today's the day that you can sign up and join hands with us as we bring the gospel around the world. And Middle East television is one of the great assets, the tools that the Lord has put in our hands to see that happen in a part of the world, as Pete just mentioned, that is in the news just about every single day.
You know, it is something in mentioning the unfunded or underfunded ministries of LaCie Broadcasting and talking about the value and the importance of all of our partners. If we had something like World Harvest Radio alone, that would be a big project to undertake, or if it was just METV or just Spread the Word. But all of these together, that's why it is so important that we need our partners, because I don't know if many of our viewers understand, you know, just the immense cost that goes into these various ministries, particularly METV, and that's why, you know, partnership is so important, because when we say these ministries are not possible without our partners, we're not kidding.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, you know, just think about the utility costs, the amount of electricity needed to get that signal out there and over the airwaves. Then the contracts with the various providers there in Israel with Hot Cable Network, which is a national network there in Israel. The Yes direct-to-home satellite, which covers all of those homes in Jerusalem. And then, you know, the translation services and the personnel, the upkeep and maintenance of all this pretty technical equipment that it comprises METV. It's a huge, huge operation, and we do want to say thank you. For those of you that have it in your heart to bring the gospel to the Middle East, that want to see a message of hope brought into the homes and into the hearts of the people, and believe in the strategy of LaCie Broadcasting of mixing that family-friendly entertainment with gospel programming so that it's a channel that people would like to go to and like to watch, and the message touches their heart as well. And again, if you're not yet a part, please today consider joining up and being a partner with LaCie Broadcasting and funding Middle East television. The number you see on your screen is a great number to call, 1-800-365-3732. You can become a partner by speaking to one of our prayer line volunteers. That is our prayer line number. And if you have anything going on in your life that you just want to talk about or pray together with someone, that's the number to call as well. Well, still to come on today's Harvest, author Bob Welch unwraps the powerful truths of a Christmas classic in his new release, 52 Little Lessons from It's a Wonderful Life. And in today's teaching, Drew continues with part 2 of The Politics of Love. We do want to hear from you today. Whatever it is that you've got to say, you can email us your questions, your comments, your prayer requests to live@lac.com. So don't go anywhere. The international news starts right now.
Today is Tuesday, December 11, 2012. I'm Bob Nagel in for Chuck Freeby with his check on international news. Tanks and soldiers remained in place at the presidential palace in Cairo Tuesday morning as the country braced for another round of mass demonstrations by the supporters of the country's Islamist president and liberal opposition. The issue at stake, a referendum on a contentious new constitution. It has deeply polarized Egypt and triggered some of the worst street violence between backers and opponents of President Mohamed Morsi, who took power in June after the first democratic election in the nation's history. A referendum is up for consideration on December 15th, and the anger heightens as the date approaches. Egypt's military assumed the security detail Monday, saying they intend to protect state institutions. Morsi has rescinded a decree that gave him absolute power, but has not backed down on the referendum. HSBC, the British banking giant, will pay $1.9 billion to settle a money laundering probe by federal and state authorities in the United States. That according to law enforcement officials on Monday. The probe of the bank, Europe's largest by market value, has focused on the transfer of billions of dollars on behalf of countries like Iran, who are under international sanctions, and the transfer of funds through U.S. financial systems for Mexican drug cartels. The agreement also calls for over $600 million in civil penalties. This is the largest forfeiture ever involving a bank under what is known as a deferred prosecutor agreement. The financial institutions will be accused of violating the Bank Secrecy Act and trading with the Enemy Act. A law enforcement official said the agreement could be reached as early as today. Mali's prime minister submitted his resignation on state television last night, just hours after soldiers who participated in the recent overthrow of the government arrested him in his home in Bamako. Saying he was acting for peace and stepping down, the prime minister stepped down along with his entire leadership. After the announcement, Cheikh Modibo Diarra was taken by car to Kate military camp. Mali's northern territories have fallen to Islamist extremists since the coup. The United Nations was asked to intervene, but it's not. A petition is circulating in the UN to take action against the Islamists who are believed to be involved with Al-Qaeda in the north. South Africa's former President Nelson Mandela continues to undergo treatment in a Pretoria hospital for what are being called lung infections. The 94-year-old Mandela has been living in retirement since stepping down as president in 1999. The ailing Mandela has been hospitalized since Saturday at a military hospital near the capital of South Africa. Today's announcement ended speculation on what was ailing the anti-apartheid icon. The Nobel laureate has received well wishes from all over the world since taking ill. Mandela spent 27 years behind bars for his actions to free his country from oppression. The trial of 18 Mexican nationals accused by the Nicaraguan government of money laundering, drug trafficking, and organized crime began Monday in the capital. The group was detained near the border with Honduras last August, carrying over $16 million in U.S. currency and euros. After opening oral arguments, the defense team entered a plea of not guilty, saying there's no proof of money laundering. In all, 6 vans with the logo from Televisa, a national television network, were stopped in the arrest. The trial is expected to last 3 or 4 days, according to court officials.
This is my home, the old city of Jerusalem. Since 2002, I have been reporting live on The Harvest Show, bringing you the news and sharing my perspective on challenges facing this ancient city.
Tune in for Brian's unique perspective on world events and check out his blog, only on The Harvest Show.
The life of Lester Sumrall was saturated in Bible study and prolific writing and teaching. And if you are like me, you look forward to the daily Lester Sumrall teaching programs, and you don't like to miss even one. Now there's a way to guarantee that you'll always have his timeless biblical lessons anytime you want them. It's called Endowment Partners. We have introduced a program whereby you can receive a monthly DVD of a Lester Sumrall teaching program while helping us keep these irreplaceable teachings on the air. Endowment Partners pledge $100 monthly, a small sum when compared to the life-changing impact of Dr. Sumrall's teaching. You'll also receive the Lester Sumrall Partner in Faith Bible with almost 30 pages of Dr. Sumrall's lessons on faith. We need your help, and you need these daily faith-building messages in your walk with the Lord. Call us today and tell the operator, I want to be a Lester Sumrall Endowment Partner.
Plagued by stress, achy joints, or just basic fatigue? The great news is you don't have to be. The first step toward great health is introducing the proper minerals to the body. And here at Making Healthy Choices, we have the perfect solution. Mineral Concentrate, a fulvic acid mineral supplement to deliver the health you've always dreamed of naturally. It's only $29.95. So call 800-965-2345 or log on to mhclife.com.
Mary. The holiday classic It's a Wonderful Life wasn't a box office hit upon its release, but it has become a perennial top 10 Christmas movie favorite. What makes the classic film so endearing? Well, veteran journalist and writer Bob Welch is here to share his insights about this movie that has woven itself into the very fabric of American Christmas tradition. Good to have you with us today, sir.
Stephen, good to be here.
Just checking the top 10 reviews, Christmas movies of all time, and the bottom, number 10, we got Christmas Vacation, great movie, always fun to watch during the holidays. Scrooge, Holiday Inn, White Christmas at number 7, Dr. Seuss, The Grinch That Stole Christmas at 6. Top 5 being rounded out with Nightmare Before Christmas, Miracle on 34th Street, The Bells of St. Mary's, Christmas Story, and then number 1, It's a Wonderful Life, as always. Yes.
All right.
Tell us a little bit about this project and the 52 little lessons that maybe aren't so little because they do impact us day by day.
Yeah. Well, I think that everybody loves the movie for the lesson, the big lesson. We all matter more than we know. But as I've watched it over the years, I've been reminded that there's all sorts of God's truth woven throughout it. And so I started making a list. I came up with 100. Winded it down to 52, one lesson a week, and there you go.
Now, It's a Wonderful Life, is that something that maybe you've watched throughout the years and was part of your Christmas tradition?
Yeah, I started watching in the 70s. You know, what happened is it came into public domain. Somebody forgot to renew the copyright, so any television station could show it. So in the 70s, it started getting shown over and over and over. And I think that's when it took off, because it was not a big box office success, and it was seen as a very dark movie or too schmaltzy. But so it wasn't a success until the 70s, and then of course it has become this sort of cult, has this cult status.
Well, I want you to know that when I knew you were coming on the show, I watched the movie again. I was so glad it came on, like within the last 2 weeks, I watched it. And, you know, I don't want to give it away for someone who has possibly not seen the movie before, but one of my favorite lines is in the beginning when he talks about the word discouragement. And I, you know, so.
Or he's discouraged.
Right, where he's really discouraged, and something worse than being sick is what he says. And I just wanted to know, there are themes throughout that movie that kind of resonate, that have staying power, like you said, this cult following. Why do you think that is?
I think that a lot of it is because there's a lot of desperation, there's a lot of darkness in the movie, but in the end, light wins out, good wins out. And I think that in our own lives, a lot of times we're desperate. And when you think of the run on the bank scene, for example, the whole town's falling apart. People are worried, sick, and what happens? Mary comes in with the $2,000 of honeymoon cash, saves the day. In the end, when George has his Christmas Eve meltdown, those are desperate times. That man is on a snowy bridge, and he's thinking of ending his life. And what happens is he turns things around. So sometimes it's the desperate times that force us to sort of reach for the light, as it were.
And you know, that has such a parallel in real life as well, kind of the paradox of the holiday seasons maybe being the most cheerful of times for some, and the most lonely and depressing or discouraging for others, you know, so that those themes are real as well. Now, 52 little lessons. I thought, well, is this a year-long devotional in preparation for It's a Wonderful Life?
Right.
But really, you've kind of trimmed them down to where you can really just kind of take a hold of these bite-sized nuggets.
You can read it any way you want to. You can read it all at once, as some people tell me they have. You can read it once a week, or you can read it the 52 days before Christmas, however you want to. But I think the important thing is just understanding the lessons and applying them to your lives. And one of the big ones is perspective. If you think about George on that snowy bridge wanting to end his life, and then the angel, of course, takes him back, shows him what life would have been like without him, to show him what a difference he made. When he comes back to that bridge hours later, nothing has changed. Circumstances haven't changed at all, and yet he's running back to Bedford Falls. Merry Christmas, everybody! And he bursts into the house, and he shakes hands with the reporter and the bank examiner, runs up the stairs, grabs the newel post that he was so angry about only 2 hours ago, and kisses it. You know, he was complaining about the house. Now he loves the house, and marry kids. He wraps them in his arm. What's changed? Nothing. What's changed is George's heart, his perspective on life. So I think the movie, at its essence, is about how we look at life. Do we appreciate the people around us? Do we appreciate the difference that we might be privileged to be making in other people's lives? Because that's what changed it all for George, not the circumstances. Nobody's came through with the $8,000 at that point. Now later, of course, a few minutes later, when they bring in all the cash, that happens. But George just changed his attitude on life.
Well, tell me something. Did you write the book so that in the event someone has not seen the movie, that they can still appreciate the truths that you share in your book without watching the movie?
I think that somebody who hasn't watched the movie can enjoy the book.
Okay.
But I think the default format is most of us, you know, if we're living and breathing, have watched this movie. And again, I know that not everybody has, but I wrote it with the understanding that most people at least have a general idea of It's a Wonderful Life.
Clarence, the quirky little chubby angel, cherub.
Angel second class.
Angel second class.
Yes.
Who's
trying to earn his wings.
Yeah, kind of the saving grace there for George Bailey in many ways.
Right.
Really speaks a lot about the interjection of we have to be kind of open for just the unexpected, God's unexpected hand coming to help us in our times of trouble.
At one point, you know, George said that he got your lips bleeding, George. He goes, yeah, I got it because of an answer to prayer. You might remember he was praying in Martini's bar, and then he got hit by Mr. Welch, ironically my last name. But Clarence says, no, that wasn't the answer to prayer. I'm your answer to prayer. And so, you know, George looking at this crazy little angel, he might not think this is the type of solution that one would get when one prayed. And I think that God works that way. Sometimes what we think is a good solution, what we think is the way that something should be fixed, is not the way that God sees fit to fix it. And he works in mysterious ways. And of course, this is a fictionalized movie, but in this way, it's a very sort of down and out and not highly revered angel who proves his worth, however. He's sort of
kind of on his last legs
himself. He's sort of the David of the cinema, you know. You know, a lot of people didn't think David was going to be a great king, and yet he was. And Clarence didn't look outwardly like a great angel, but he was. Did the right thing.
Well, Bob, you know, in this time that we live in, social media, Facebook, everything is instant, microwavable. You'd say in lesson 9, stop to count your blessings. And because we live in a world that's really fast-paced, we don't get a chance to do that.
Exactly.
We want to see the big picture right away. But you say stop and count your blessings. And then you can really see the impact of God's hand in your life.
Exactly. And I think that you have to be conscious about that, because if we don't get up every morning and sort of focus our day from the very get-go, it's going to get lost with a to-do list. And I'm the poster boy for busyness. I know that more than anybody. So I'm just trying in my own life to just be reminded all the time of what I have to be thankful for. There's a scene in the movie when they've blessed the Martini house with the bread and the wine and everything, and they're going back to the car, and Sam Wainwright, George is rich, went off to New York and made all this money. He has come by, and he invites George and Mary to go to Florida in the chauffeur-driven car, and they can't do it. And George and Mary walk back to the car, and his door of his car is open, and you can see the frustration is built, because he wants to go to Florida. He wants to be able to go out and do things instead of being tied to Bedford Falls, and he kicks the door shut in his frustration. And so I understand where he's coming from, and I think for him, you know, there was other people who had things he didn't want. So for George, he needs to sort of refocus, as he does at the end of the movie, and realize he has all that he needs right there in that living room.
Wonderful. We're going to be back with Bob Welch in just a moment to dive into a few more of the little lessons from It's a Wonderful Life, so don't go anywhere.
Hurricane Sandy just devastated the Atlantic coast, and Feed the Hungry needs your help today to move much needed food, water, and other supplies to the most hard-hit areas. Down in the inner city of New York, we're going to be taking a lot of food, a lot of water, and a lot of supplies to help people who are in need right now. Just $20 can move 400 pounds of food and relief supplies, but we need your help today. Call the number you see on the screen or give securely online. Thank you.
Making Healthy Choices would like to help you get a fresh start toward a healthy life with the Get Started Pack. This pack includes Mineral Rich with Aloe, combined with vitamins B12 and biotin for energy and overall stamina. Vita Sprout, a superior multivitamin from organic freeze-dried vegetable sprouts. Solucy 120 count with green tea to boost your immune system. Hyssop Cleanse, a natural fiber source to cleanse and remove toxins. And borage oil, an omega-6 fatty acid, which can aid in balancing cholesterol levels. Plus, we'll include the booklet Achieving Super Immunity, a must-read, especially for flu season. Call now and it can be yours for only $85, and for a limited time only, shipping is free. Call 800-965-2345 or order on the web at mhclife.com.
Hi, I'm Pete Summerall. I'm on the roof of where we broadcast Middle East television from Limassol, Cyprus. From this one location, we're able to reach out to the entire Middle East with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Partners, without your help, we can't do it. You know, it's bright up here, the sun is shining, but you know, Middle East television is a bright light to a dark world, and I believe we're changing lives. Our entertainment programming, family programming, a little bit of sports, and Christian programming are touching lives like no other network can. We're so thankful for Middle East television being able to reach out across this entire region, but we can't do it without your help, partners. So go to the phone, be a part of changing lives throughout the entire Middle East. From Limassol, Cyprus to the entire Middle East, the gospel is going forward.
To help bring the gospel to the Middle East, call 1-800-365-3732.
And welcome back to the Harvest Show. Today, for those of you just tuning in, veteran journalist and writer Bob Welch is here to offer some insights about an American classic that we kind of all look forward to during this Christmas season, and It's a Wonderful Life, and 52 little lessons from the #1 rated movie, holiday movie of all time. Yeah. Bob, why did you pick It's a Wonderful Life? What kind of led you to look at the lessons taught in this particular movie versus maybe another famous holiday film?
Well, I just think that, you know, I guess the fact that they aligned with my biblical thinking, and that it's a fun movie, it's a well-watched movie, and I sort of put the things together and thought, you know, that people could relate to this. People could, I think people are interested in delving deeper into things they already know about, and a lot of people already know about this movie, and it's I can't tell you how many times I've been at book signings when the first thing someone says is, "Oh, it's my favorite movie," and or sign 5 books because it's all for all my daughters. We watch it every Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, one of the things I noticed about the movie, it gives you a full emotional experience. You have highs and lows, just like George Bailey.
Exactly.
And one of the things that disappointed me was that every time the things he wanted to do, you know, they seemed to just slip away from him each time.
He wanted
he wanted to travel. He wanted to build skyscrapers. He wanted to do so much. And they would seem to slip away. And then I would think about my own life, some things that probably got away from me. What lesson can we learn from that?
The lesson is that sometimes our satisfaction is right in our backyard. It doesn't have to be out there somewhere. It might be right within us. And because I can relate to George Bailey. There's some things I've reached for in my life, and I haven't been able to get them. And so I can really relate to what he's doing. But in the end, he always wants to, the idea, the world seems to suggest you've got to become somebody. You've got to go someplace. You've got to build a name. It's status. It's accumulation.
That is so true.
It's what's written on your business card. But I think in God's economy, it's how do you relate to God and how do you relate to the people around you? And I think in the end, George is blessed because that's what he's done so well. While everybody else went off and did important things, and he related so well to the people around him. He saved a community, and he was an honorable man. He was a man of integrity. And I think in the end, he's honored for that.
Okay, so I also love Mary and throughout the movie because she really provides that support for
Right.
George, and her identity is not sacrificed
Right.
because of it.
She's the one that has the imagination, the creativity. She's really well focused, well grounded. George is a little bit flighty. I mean, he winds up on that bridge. He kind of has a pretty serious meltdown there. But Mary's the steady one. Mary's the one who comes up with the solution to save the building and loan. Mary's the one who she doesn't need to go off anywhere and do something big and important. She sees the Granville house and says, I'd like to live in that house someday. Because she can imagine not what is, but what might be. And she sees that house fixed up. And she's the one in the soda shop when she sees George Bailey at age 8 or 10 and thinks, George Bailey, I'll love you till the day I die. So she has great focus, and I think that she's a good lesson for us. They're well matched. She has her strengths, George has his strengths.
She's kind of like a quiet, contentious, and yet very content.
Exactly.
Maybe like the Mary of the Martha and Mary
Definitely.
Yeah.
She is the quiet, I call her the quiet hero of the show, really. And in the end, when George has the meltdown and leaves the kids, one of my chapters is about forgiveness and grace. She didn't need to welcome him back. She could have left for her mom's house or taken the kids and just gone somewhere. But what did she do? She started, the minute George had his meltdown and left, she started praying and calling people. She prayed. She did two things. She started praying and told the kids to pray and called people and had them pray. But she also started the ball rolling to sort of fix the problem, which was $8,000. And once word spread around Bedford Falls, people came in and easily made up that deficit. So she's also a grace-filled woman.
Now, where we are in the final throes of 2012 and a global and domestic financial crisis over the last number of years, and this thing called the fiscal cliff that's waiting on January 1, 2013. Maybe folks watching It's a Wonderful Life this year might really be resonating with many of the emotions and some of the overwhelming feelings of life kind of crashing in on you or around you. One of the big lessons that you bring out is that you can't run away
you can't,
from your problems.
In the scene right after they get married, and Ernie the cab driver says, "I think there's a run on the bank," and Mary and George says, "Well, stop." And Mary says, no, let's go, George, don't stop. She wants to, in essence, at that point, forget about the problem, pretend it doesn't exist. George wants to go face the problem. And when he gathers the people, what does he say? He says, don't panic. We have to have faith in each other. We can get through this. And I think those are lessons for us as well in difficult financial times. And to realize that our real faith doesn't rely on a dollar bill. Our real faith relies on a God who's promised he's not going to leave us.
Yeah, and others as well.
Exactly.
One of the great lines is, no man is a failure who has friends.
Exactly, right.
And it kind of lends us to believe that as long as there are people that we can connect with and stay true to, we can get through some things in life.
And to understand that we matter to each other. We're necessary. Each man's life touches so many others, and when he's not around, he leaves a terrible hole, doesn't he? I think a lot of people wallow in self-pity, and they don't stop to think that they're important to people, and maybe they don't have people around them reminding them of that. Well, just because somebody doesn't remind you that you've made a difference in their life doesn't mean that you haven't.
Yeah.
So, well, lesson 15, prayer changes things. Talk about that.
Prayer changes things. In the end, I think the movie starts out with what? Prayer. The entire community is praying for George Bailey. And so what happens? Clarence is coming down. Clarence taking him back and showing him what life would have been like without him. What triggered that was the prayer of Mary. And then George Bailey, when he goes to that bar, he prayed too. Remember, he folds his hand and he says, God, I'm not a praying man, but he's going to make an exception. I'm really desperate. And so he does prayer. So the point is that the prayer was the catalyst. It triggered all of the good that happened, the trip back in time, the people bringing the money. Prayer changed things, and it does in our lives as well.
And one other thing, I guess it's a reminder also that when we think, God is not listening or our prayers are falling on deaf ears, that is not the case.
Exactly. Again, he might not answer it the way that we think he will. I don't think that George Bailey thought when he prayed he was going to get a little
right.
Clarence Oddbody, angel second class showing up, but that's the way God chose to handle that. And I think he handles our problems in very different ways than we might expect him to, but he does answer our prayers.
We just got a moment left,
Sure.
and again, kind of keeping with this theme of where we are today nationally, where many of our viewers are today as well, with respect to the pressures of just the world in which we live. One of the lessons that you bring out in the little lessons is that when we help others, we often help
Exactly.
ourselves.
We all live in our own Bedford Falls, wherever we are, and we can choose to live life as an adventure or as a nightmare. And to live life as an adventure is to invest in other people around us, like George Bailey did so well. The things that he didn't think were important. Wait a minute, he got the Martinis wouldn't have had that house if it wasn't for the goodness of George Bailey. He didn't even notice that. But I would encourage people to invest in people's lives, pray, and realize that it is a wonderful life if you do those things.
Wonderful. Well, it's so good to have you with us. Bob Welch, author of 52 Little Lessons from It's a Wonderful Life. Bob's going to be back with us next week to kind of go through some of these in nugget form as well as we head into the Christmas season. To connect with Bob, you can go to bobwelch.net, or as always, you can go to our website, harvest-tv.com. If you click on Show Info in the menu bar, you'll find an easy way to connect back to Bob's site as well and pick up a copy of this wonderful book, which is really tied to a wonderful movie that has touched all of us. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
You might not realize it, but there are angels watching over you. These supernatural beings protect and comfort you, but they do so much more. In his book, Angels to Help You, Dr. Lester Sumrall explains what angels do, what they know, and why you need their help. Angels helped Jesus during his time on earth, and they're here for you today. Angels to Help You is free. To get a copy, just pay a small $5 shipping and handling fee. Call the number on your screen or go online today.
Shalom, and welcome to The Bible Comes to Life. Join us as we explore the stories of the Bible and experience them where they actually happened in the land of Israel. I'm Omer Eshel, Director of the Israel Government Tourist Office, Midwest Region, and your host. Today, we will talk about another site around Galilee, near Capernaum, where Jesus performed one of his most amazing miracles, the town of Tabcha. Tabka, which is in Aramaic the name of the place. It's also called in Hebrew Ein Sheva, or Seven Springs. It is a fertile plateau that was uninhabited during the time of Jesus. This is why Jesus chose it as the site of the miracle of the fish and loaves. He could gather together a large multitude of 5,000 people in this place without having to contend with already existing structures and inhabitants. We read in Mark 6:35, when the day was now far spent, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and already the hour is late. Send them away, that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat." But he answered and said to them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Should we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat?" But he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then he commanded them to make them all sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in ranks, in hundreds and fifties. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to the heaven, blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fish he had divided among them all. So they all ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments and of the fish. Now those who had eaten the loaves were about 5,000 men. Today, when you go to Tabqa, you will see a mosaic representing this miracle of loaves and fish. You will visit an ancient Byzantine church that commemorates the event, and you will see the green grass around you, and you will be as one of the 5,000. You can close your eyes and sit on the green grass, facing the lake, and imagine that you are being fed by Jesus, and that you are witnessing his miracle. Only in Israel, where the Bible comes to life.
And welcome back, where we've begun a new series that I'm very excited about, working through the book of 1 John. And the title of our series is The Politics of Love. Today, we've reached part 2. Now, last time we discussed how darkness and light are not set in some sort of, you could say, dialectical tension of opposites, because when light enters, darkness is simply no more, right? And today we're going to expand on this just a little bit. Let's jump right into our reading of 1 John chapter 2. Let's start in verse 1. What does it say? My dear children, I write this to you so that you will not sin. But if anybody does sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous one. Verse 2. He is the atoning sacrifice for our sins, and not only for our sins, but also for the sins of the whole world. We know that we have come to know him if we keep his commands. Verse 4, whoever says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in that person. But if anyone obeys his word, love for God is truly made complete in them. This is how we know we are in him. Verse 6, whoever claims to live in him must what? Live as Jesus did. Verse 7, dear friends, I'm not writing you a new command, but an old one, which you have had since the beginning. This old command is the message that you've heard. Verse 8, yet I am writing you a new command. Its truth is seen in him and in you, because the darkness is passing and the true light is already shining. Verse 9, anyone who claims to be in the light but hates a brother or sister is still in the darkness. Verse 10, anyone who loves their brother and sister lives in the light, and there is nothing in them to make them stumble. And finally, verse 11, but anyone who hates a brother or sister is in the darkness and walks around in the darkness. They do not know where they're going because the darkness has blinded them. Now, anyone who has maybe grown up in Sunday school, like myself, has probably grown very much accustomed to this biblical language of darkness and light. And I think in some ways our, you could say, familiarity with these terms can lead us to be, at times, dismissive. I believe it's imperative that we follow this language and this line of thinking all the way to the end. But what does this mean? I don't believe that light is the opposite of darkness. Why? Because when light turns up on the scene, darkness is simply wholly eliminated. And yet, how often do we attempt to import the light into the realm of the darkness? Or more specifically, how often do we attempt to reform the body politic from within? Or even more specifically, how often, get this, how often do we attempt to live as Jesus did without living as Jesus did. I want to go back to verse 9. What does it say? Anyone who claims to be in the light but hates a brother or sister is still in the darkness. In verse 10, anyone who loves their brother and sister lives in the light, and there is nothing in them to make them stumble. Verse 11, but anyone who hates a brother or sister is in the darkness and walks around in the darkness. They do not know where they are going because the darkness has what? It's blinded them. This is why whoever claims to live in him, Jesus, must live as he, Jesus, did. Let me ask you, if you can remember, when did Jesus attack, or you could say maybe lash out at his enemy in a politically partisan manner? When did Jesus not engage the other in love? How many of Jesus' disciples, after he was gone, sought the kingdom of God through some form of official political process or mechanism? Again, verse 4, what does it say? Whoever says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in that person. Verse 5, but if anyone obeys his word, love for God is truly made complete in them. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must what? Live as Jesus did. And of course, I believe the greatest testament, I think you'll agree, the greatest testament to the way Christ lived is not necessarily the way Christ lived, but the way he died. I want to say that one more time. The greatest testament to the way Christ lived is the way he died. And this is precisely why we preach Christ crucified. Again, verse 2, let's go back to it. He is the atoning sacrifice for our sins. And not only for ours, but also for the sins of the whole world. The Greek word here for world is cosmos with the K. That's the Greek, the arrangement of society established by its citizens. Christ was the atoning sacrifice for the sins of the whole cosmos. Well, what sins are these? Let's quickly glance at just one very basic example. This is in Matthew 20. We're going to read verses 25 through 28. Jesus called them, speaking of course of his disciples, together, and he said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man, Jesus, did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Christ did not come to live, but to bring life, to give his life. Thus, we know that we have come to know him if we keep his commands. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Such is the politics of love. The politics of the, you could say, cosmos, lord it over them, us versus them, right? Offense and retaliation. But the politics of love does not do this. The politics of love, it's never served, but rather serves. It serves as the servant of all. We'll be right back.
The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him, my Father's God, and I will exalt him. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation. He is my stronghold, my refuge, and my Saviour. From violent people you save me. I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Want to accept Jesus as your personal Saviour? or have questions about Christian life. Call Prayer Line at 1-800-365-3732.
How's your faith? Are you like the apostles who said, Lord, increase our faith? Are you praying for the mountains in your own life to move? When you join our monthly Partner in Faith ministry with a regular monthly donation, we will provide free resources selected to help you strengthen your faith. You can put your faith into action right now by calling the numbers on your screen and joining Partners in Faith. Take your faith to a new level today. Do it now.
Hi, I'm Pete Summerall, and here I am in Jerusalem. Behind me, the old city walls. Been here for a couple of days working on business with Middle East Television, and you know, it's an amazing place to be able to be. You can't experience unless you come for yourself. You know, be able to walk where Jesus walked, to be able to see the temple area, to be able to go to the Western Wall, to be able to go out on that Sea of Galilee, to go to the Garden Tomb. What an incredible experience it is. You know, not far from here, actually, is a place where my dad, Dr. Lester Summerall, back in 1956, prayed for his ministry and the future of his ministry and how he should handle himself and what he should do. And God clearly showed him multimedia. And that's why we're involved in multimedia today. That's why we're involved in electronic media, literally around the world. World Harvest Radio and Middle East Television and domestic television stations and radio stations in the United States, reaching out and touching people in unique and amazing ways. We can only do it with your help. Thank God for you. We praise God for all of our partners, but we need more. We need more of you to join with us as we reach out and touch people around the world.
Well, you have opportunity to take the trip of a lifetime and visit the land of Israel this coming February from the 11th to the 20th, February 2013. We take 3 tours a year, once in February, once in June, and once in November. And the February tour has been extended in this year, this coming year, to kind of give a little bit more time there and take in a little bit more of the Holy Land. You can start your journey by calling 1-800-685-3732 or go to lasetours.com. And it all starts with that phone call. When you call, you'll speak to either Lumi or Kim, and any questions you might have, you can speak them out and they'll address them and get your packet of information and get ready to go. It really is quite an endearing trip, and it is an enduring memory as well. I've been to Israel 3 times. Drew, I know you've been there multiple occasions as well. Valerie just returned back not too long ago, a few weeks ago.
That's right, and I was there working. Drew, he says I was on vacation. I was actually working.
Don't pretend like you didn't enjoy it. You enjoyed it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I could tell you she enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
Got to see Valerie at breakfast and dinner, and
yes,
and then she was working in between. But for all of the people that go on the trip, that go on the tour, it really is a memorable experience. It really is the trip of a lifetime. And you know, the kind of cliches, you'll never be the same. But there is a great amount of reality to that as well. You'll just not see things the same way once you go to Israel. And that's why, you know, I never understood why people go again and again and again. And I've met people that have gone 9 times, 12 times, 15 times back to Israel. One thing is that the land is always changing in the sense of there's new discoveries being made and new truth coming to light from archaeology and from cultural reference and whatnot. But there's so much there that every time you do go, there's nuances that you haven't seen before.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? We always use this phrase, the Bible comes alive. And, you know, maybe you can answer this because, you know, you've just been recently, you know, for the, not your first time, but second time.
Second time.
And, I mean, for me, if the Bible is going to come to life for you, then this message, this series that, you know, we've just started, this idea of the politics of love, if the Bible's not going to come to life in a way where you recognize and accept this truth of Jesus saying, if you are not the servant of all, if you don't live as I lived, as it says there in 1 John, if you hate a brother or sister, you live in the darkness. If your Bible doesn't come alive in that way, then it has not yet come alive.
Yes, Drew, and you said something, I don't know if you have enough time to elaborate a little bit on it, when you talked about Jesus and his life being significant in his death. Could you elaborate on
Well,
that?
I think the perfect example of the way Jesus demanded that we live, the way that he commanded us to follow, and the way that he went. I once did a series called The Imitation of Christ. If we're going to be disciples of Jesus, followers of Jesus, that means that we're going to live as he lived. Well, the perfect example of that is the way that he died. Now, I don't want people to misunderstand when we talk about the politics of love. I'm not saying that we shouldn't vote. All of us voted here. We just had an election cycle. And people might be offended by the idea of Democrats and Republicans in this country ultimately want the same thing. Someone might say, well, that's ridiculous. I want this, and the people on the far other side want something totally different. But ultimately what they want is the same, which is the power to control the other side, the power to be in charge, the power to be in power. That's what politics is. The politics of love does not, as I read today, does not exercise its authority, lord it over them. That's what the Gentiles do. They lord their authority over them. But not so with you, says Jesus to his disciples. Not so with you. If you want to be first in my kingdom, then you must become the servant of all. And that is the politics of love. It steps, of course, yes, in a way, it is a perspective shift. There's no shift that's not a perspective shift. But ultimately, it's a paradigm perspective shift where we step out of this realm of politics of servitude and domination into a whole nother existence altogether.
And that was clearly demonstrated and epitomized in the crucifixion of Christ.
In the way Jesus died, yes, of course. I mean, he even said, you know, like I could call down angels right now.
A legion of angels, yes.
But I didn't do that. Put your sword away. Those who live by the sword die by the sword.
Good teaching.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Love to hear from you today. live@lc.com. You can email us your thoughts, questions, comments. Love to read them as well. And as always, the prayer line's open at 1-800-365-3732. Thanks for joining us on Harvest today. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is the birthplace of Christianity, and I wanted to come to experience this history firsthand.
It's deepening the meaning of the Bible now. It's not a place. I've been there. I've seen this.
Every new day brings new experiences, and we've been to places that we've read about in the Bible, we've heard about, preached about, and we are there. And it's amazing.
This experience has changed my life dramatically. I think when I get back home, I'm going to be a totally different person.
Just the reality that, we were where Christ was.
We had the best air flight. We have been catered to here. It's been wonderful. It's been a joy, and I hope to come back someday.
I think a trip like this you can't put a value on. It was worth everything and more. It really was. I had to want to come back. I hope I can come back.
Here at LaCie Broadcasting, we know that a good day starts with a good morning. So we invite you to wake up with The Harvest Show. Join Pete, Drew, Valerie, Chuck, and Stephen each weekday as they bring you stories that will make you laugh, cry, and inspire you. So grab some coffee, your Bible, and a seat on the couch, and tune in each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time for The Harvest Show, only on your LaCie Broadcasting station.
We all would like to wish you and your families a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from LaCie Broadcasting.